Hello, my name is printf, and this is another one of my Cannon Rush tutorial videos. Today I'm going to be going over build orders and scout timings. So of all the potential build orders for a Cannon Rush, the best one mathematically for a 2-player map and a 3-pylon wall off is to go 9 pylon, rally your probe on 10, chrono boost immediately when the pylon finishes, chrono boost when this pylon runs out. When this chrono boost runs out, rally again to this base, rally back to your mineral line, get a forge on 13, and then go up to 14 probes. Do not build a 15th probe, as doing so will lose you approximately 6 seconds on your rush, which is actually significant. Your probe will arrive about in time to build the pylon when the forge is around 20 seconds done, which means that they will finish at the same time because a forge requires 45 seconds and a pylon requires 25 seconds. So if you build the pylon when the forge is at 20 seconds, then they will finish concurrently. Note that this is just an arbitrary wall off I chose for the purposes of this tutorial. I actually vetoed this map on ladder. On some 2-player maps, it is better to use a 4-pylon wall off than a 3-pylon wall off. If you're using a 4-pylon, then you'll use a slightly different build order than if you're using a 3-pylon, because you need 400 minerals and not 300, or even like 150, or however early you choose to start the 3-pylon, because you don't always wait for all 300 minerals. So you will once again chrono boost after your 9 pylon finishes, but here you will scout on 12 rather than rallying on 11. You will then of course chrono boost after that chrono boost wears off, and you will attempt to microprobes a little bit better than I do. Then go for a 14 forge, and send that probe to join your first. The second probe should sit on the outskirts of his base though, because you don't want to reveal it to him, whereas your first probe can go all the way in because it's not nearly as suspicious. You should then go up to 15 probes, and you should chrono boost when possible. Your probe will get here around 300 minerals, which gives you time to scout if he is proxying you, and then to go and do the actual Cannon Rush. You only need to have about 350 minerals when your first pylon goes down, because you should mine the rest while the other pylons are building. Depending, of course, on the exact wall off and how far apart each of the pylons are. An alternative build order you can use is the proxy forge. You send your probe across the map as soon as it begins, and you get a probe going and probe up to 10 probes. You send your probe around the outskirts of the opponent's base as to not be noticed, and then you get a pylon on 10 supply wherever you want to perform the proxy forge. You should make sure that your building placement allows for the pylon and the forge to create a solid wall. When the pylon finishes, you build a probe back home, and you build a forge at his base. You should also chrono boost this probe, and you should send another probe to join, so that way you can build cannons outside the wall off. This second probe is not necessary if you can squeeze your first probe out with your first pylon. On this map it is not possible. Go up to 12 probes, back home, and as soon as this forge finishes, build a cannon. Alternatively, you can go up to 13 probes if you want the additional income. However, it will delay the extra cannons that you get over here. Your extra probe will arrive in time to build some cannons shortly before this finishes, so that this will finish in time to protect them. So if you went for 13 probes, this second cannon would be a little bit delayed, but not by too much. And then you'll probably want to get a cannon back home to defend against an all-in, or go looking for a ninja base, or whatever else. On Cactus Valley, I actually use a 4 pylon wall off, and it is a 4-player map with no spawn restrictions, so you have to use a different build order here. You still go 9 pylon, but now you immediately send out your probe to scout, instead of waiting to rally your 10th probe. This will give your probe plenty of time to get over here, and then go over here in case the opponent is not in the bottom left. Once the pylon finishes, you come over with your probes. You apparently micro your probes badly as well if you happen to be me. Once this chrono boost wears off, you chrono boost again. And you send out a probe around 13 supply to go to the other side that you didn't send your first probe to. You then get your forge on 14 supply, or 15. It actually doesn't really matter because regardless it will be done in time. And then you go up to either 15 or 16 probes depending on whether you would prefer the little bit more economy or the little bit faster cannon rush. Your probes will arrive around 2:30 to 2:35. This one accidentally turned around halfway through because I misclicked. And you'll very quickly have enough money to conduct your rush. However, what if you happen to forget to scout on 9? I do this a lot because 1 4-player map and 3 2-player maps means I'm very used to not scouting on 9. So if this happens, all is not lost. You can still use a different scouting pattern and only lose a few seconds on your rush. It is not ideal, but if you do happen to forget, it's fine. On 11 supply, rally your probe to the cross spawn, and of course chrono boost after 9, after the chrono boost wears off and all that fun stuff. And then on 12, rally your probe up and pull a second probe. So on 11 you rally your probe to the cross map, and then on 12 you rally a probe vertically and send another probe horizontally. Or you could do it the other way around, rallying horizontally, sending your probe vertically. Doesn't actually matter. And then the force timing is the same. This, like I said, it is not ideal. You will lose more mining time this way than with the 9 scout and 13 scout. But you will at least still get there on time, even if you forget to scout on 9. And then of course you will send whichever probe is unnecessary back, and your cross scout probe will go to whichever one of these the opponent happens to spawn in. If your opponent is cross spawn, then one of these 2 will go cross and the other one will go back home. If on a 4-player map you need to arrive at the opponent's base a little bit earlier, then you can use another alternative scouting pattern. This will get you to your opponent's base guaranteed about 20 seconds earlier than a last scout would with the 9 scout, 13 scout. And it will get you to all 3 spawns at the same time using a 3 probe scout pattern. So you rally on 10 your probe to the cross spawn, and then on 11 you rally a probe and send another probe. Once again, if your opponent is not cross spawn, then this probe will go to whichever base he is in, and the other probe will go home. And if he is cross spawn, then one of these will go to join your first probe, and the other probe will go home. This scouting pattern will get you here, like I said, about 20 seconds earlier than the 9 scout to 13 scout will. Also, while it looks here like this probe did not actually go in far enough to see if the opponent is here, you can use the trick mentioned in one of the mechanics videos, where you queue up a move command and see if your probe paths around an invisible nexus. So this is actually possible without knowing where your opponent is. And this can allow you to do a 3 pylon cannon rush significantly earlier against a cross spawn than a 9 scout 13 scout would. So I hope that you found this helpful and that it will allow you to execute your cannon rush a little bit more efficiently by using the proper build orders and scout timings.